So how do we actually go about deploying computing resources, right? We've talked about cloud, we've talked about on-premises a bit. There's actually three main models that are formally defined as the top deployment models. So we've we've talked about the kind of the outdated one, the classic on-premises deployment. So it's hosting and managing software on servers. Um, Software servers and infrastructure within an organization's physical location. So this, you're not outsourcing to a cloud service provider. You're doing everything in-house. You're handling the hardware, you're handling the software, you're doing it all yourself. This is typically very expensive, but there are still use cases nowadays. In fact, in the company I worked, I was a GovTech full stack engineer. We worked with the Department of Defense. Um, they would actually do on-premises deployment. Now, I won't tell you just yet why. I want you to kind of think about in what cases would it not work out, to outsource your computing to a cloud service provider. What kind of customers, right, wouldn't allow that or would prefer a different type of model? So yeah, on-premises definitely not popular anymore, but there are still use cases for it. And then of course we have cloud-based deployments. So this is um, what we're going to be talking about throughout the whole class. So that's hosting applications, data, and services on remote servers. So a third party, the cloud service providers, are handling all the computational resources. Of course, you can combine the two. Sometimes there's cases where you might want to have both. Maybe there's certain requirements, right, where you have to have at least some of the data stored on premises, and then the rest you can have it, outsourced to the service provider. So yeah, hybrid, as you can tell, right, it combines both models together so that you can share data between your on-premise hardware and your remote hardware from the service provider. So on-premises deployment, so they're deployed on premises. They're going to have different tools, right? It's not, dinosaur like it used to be. There are tools, like I mentioned before, that can make on-premises deployment not only possible, but just as efficient as the cloud. So now you have the advent of virtualization. If you ever heard of virtual machine, it's like having a baby computer inside your regular computer. You can split up your regular computer and virtualize it. Definitely encourage you to look more into virtual machines. We'll definitely cover it here and there throughout the class, but for now, just know it's a technique in order to split up resources. So yeah, on-premises deployment, you're doing it in-house. They're still using certain tools, right, to kind of make the most out of their resources. Um, but yeah, for example, why would what would it look like for a company to do it, right? So they're going to host their app in their on-premises data center. So all their hardware is there. It's physically located in their business, and they're transmitting, funneling all the data through their own hardware. So this does, like I said, it's kind of a legacy way of doing things. It resembles legacy IT infrastructure, but it's still using nowadays. On premises has definitely had a facelift. They're using modern management and virtualization technology, so they make the most out of those resources. So everything that the cloud based providers are doing, you can also do it in house. Just know it'll be expensive, costly, not just in money, but also in time. And then, of course, you have cloud-based deployment, right? So everything's on the remote servers. So Amazon's going to have its data centers all over the world. So all parts of your app are going to run in the cloud. You can migrate your current apps into the cloud. Maybe you're developing an app, you're ready to deploy it, so you're going to migrate it to the cloud. You can design and build new applications in the cloud directly as well. So what would that look like? What's a company who's maybe building an app, right? And they have their servers, their databases, all their every computing component is going to be in the cloud. So, for example, if I want to start, let's say, I don't know, a food nutrition app, right? I don't want to deal with actually deploying the app from my home, like literally from my home. I don't want to have the servers that are going to handle your requests to use my app. I don't want to have the database hardware, right, to store all of my users' data. That'd be crazy for me to do as a single one person team, right? Um, Now, if I do want to be my one person team, right, where all I'm in charge is building the app and making changes to it, testing it, updating it, all the IT resource stuff, I can give that to the cloud service provider. Say, hey, all I'm gonna do is give you the app, and you're gonna handle all the hardware, all the resources. You're gonna help me decide. Maybe my app starts to get really busy. Right, there's a lot of clients for my app. Right, a lot of people requesting data. The cloud service provider is going to scale up how many resources I need. If I do it in house, I might run out of servers, right? I'm going to have to add additional ones to handle, peak traffic. So cloud-based model definitely advantageous, especially if you're a small company or you're like, developing, like all really you're in charge of is developing an app. You're not going to want to handle all that IT stuff. You can hand it over to a cloud service provider. And at the end of the day, you're going to save money. It's not just, saving time, it's also saving money, as we'll see. So again, think what scenarios do you think in on-premises or private deployment is preferred over the cloud? So what kind of companies would not allow themselves to go to the cloud? Consider what risk, right, they might face by deploying to a cloud service provider. Because at the end of the day, if you've taken my 101 class, for example, we talk about how anything on the internet is inherently at risk. Once you plug into the internet, there is inherent risk to it. So what kind of companies or what kind of scenarios would prefer a private or on-premise deployment? All right, so hybrid deployment. So in hybrid deployment, cloud-based resources are connected to on-premises infrastructure. So why would an organization opt for a hybrid model? There might be legacy apps that are better maintained on premises. The government regulations might require a business to keep certain data and records on premises. So yeah, they might be restricted. Maybe their app is too old, so only their in-house hardware can really run it. Or maybe they have to follow some kind of rules where, not all their data can be on the cloud. A little hint for the last question. So yeah, it connects your cloud-based resources to on-premises. It's a combination of the on-premise and the cloud models. So why would you choose the cloud? Well, the cloud allows you to save time and money. That's really the core selling point of the cloud. So computing in data centers often requires you to spend more money and time managing infrastructure and servers. So if you do your own data centers, I should add that, because if it's remote, right, then you're not really spending all that time and money to set it up. So yeah, it makes it easier for businesses to focus time on developing and deploying. If I'm a one-team developer, if I'm a one-team company, and my job is simply to build the app, I don't want to be in charge of compute resources, of memory resources, of storage resources. I'm gonna give that over to the cloud service provider. And at the end of the day, if I want people to use my app, if I want it to be like a serious app that's available, right, whether it's to 10 users or to 10,000, it's going to be easier to handle those differences in traffic with a cloud service provider. And add to that, right, that I might have customers all over the world. Cloud service provider has data centers all over the world. So the distance does matter to which data center you're at. If you're trying to deliver data from here to, I don't know, let's say China, right? It's definitely going to be not as quick as delivering it to a data center in California. Like I said, there's real infrastructure, real cables, right, connecting the internet together. So distance does matter. So yeah, that's kind of the last point, right? Enables you to deploy applications to customers around the world very quickly. The variable expense means you only pay for the computing resources you need. If I do it on my own, if I try to have my own data center, I have to be ready to deliver, again, to 10 customers or to 10,000. So that might be one server computer, that might be 20, right? If I give that to the cloud service provider, they can handle those changes, that variable expense, and they can charge me for only what I use, depending on what plan I get. And we're going to explore the plans together once we get to EC2. But yeah, you can avoid these upfront costs by instead of building it on your own, right? You're gonna have to pay for everything all at once. You can kind of pay as you go, because Amazon can afford to sell it to you, right, at a much cheaper price. It's called economies of scale. Economies of scale is when you make the business big enough so that the product becomes really cheap. If I'm only making 10 hamburgers, right, per day, those hamburgers are going to be probably pretty expensive. Now, if I'm able to scale up the business to 10,000 hamburgers per day, then those hamburgers, right, I can sell them for a much cheaper price. Economies of scale. So the cloud, why is it, such a hot thing? Like, why is it so tied to business, right? To tech. At the end of the day, right, if you're a big company nowadays, you're probably going to have some kind of tech footprint, right? Some website, some kind of computing. So this video explores that. Definitely encourage y'all to watch it. All right, so go ahead and watch that video, and we'll pick up right after.